Hey, it's Ross Payton with Role Playing Public Radio. This is RPPR episode 167, Origins 2019 Wrap-Up. And with me is Birk and Bridget, RPPR's most innovative GM. So,
hi, everybody.
So you've probably heard some of what happened at Origins with on the Mix 6 and Role Playing Exchange, as we've already done sort of wrap-ups with them. But we're going to be talking about some different material here, and including a discussion of the new 6th edition Shadowrun starter box, which has come out, and Birk and Bridget have exhaustively analyzed it in excruciating detail and can have produced very insightful reviews that we'll be talking about. I've already dug into one of the other RPGs I picked up at Origins, Mothership, and we'll talk about a couple other games. But first off, we have a bit of news. The RPPR Patreon has a new bonus podcast, Questing for Answers. We already have 2 episodes up, and this is a Q&A podcast where patrons can ask questions of the RPPR cast, and then we answer them. And it's been a lot of fun so far. So if you're an RPPR Patreon, and you have questions for us about games or movies or music or whatever it is, feel free to ask, and we'll put a preview episode up on this feed later on, so you can get a sense of what you're missing if you're not already a member of the RPPR Patreon. And if you're at a $10 backer or higher, you can get to play games run by the cast members. Like Bridget, for example, is running a game of Unknown Armies, so you definitely want to check that out.
And then the Q&A, if you want to ask me anything about Dagashi or how to run a Zweihander game with absolutely no prep as the GM, I got you covered.
Yeah.
Just participating. So like one thing that's really cool that's come out of the question for answers, it's just people asking questions on Discord that maybe don't make it into an episode, but there's still like a lot of really good discussion about them. So it's been like a really nice side effect, I think, for the community.
Yeah, we have a question. We do have the questions channel on the RPPR Patreon Discord, and I try to answer questions, and other people have answered questions. Yeah, there's been some really interesting discussion.
If you just want to nerd out about board games or tabletop games like this, the Discord in and of itself is just a kind of like a chill place. Like if you just want to hang out and talk about random games.
Yeah.
But also, for the Patreon, the bonus features, I really recommend if like you want to play games, but you're having a hard time getting a local group together. It's fairly drop-in for RPPR games, run by, of course, RPPR staffers. So you get to hang out with us and play games and do none of the work because you get to be a player. I really recommend it.
So check that out on our Patreon site. First off, we should, Origins 2019 was a lot of fun. A lot of stuff to talk about, but of course, there weren't a lot of new releases for Origins, at least in the realm of RPGs. Origins is more of a board game convention. But certainly the biggest one was the starter box for 6th edition Shadowrun. Birk and was nice enough to mail an extra copy to Bridget, and so they've both been able to tear into this. So tell us about what's happening in the 6th edition of Shadowrun.
Oh boy, tear in is definitely the word I'm going to use.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that they decided to release this starter box without even having the core set done. Like you have everything you need to play Shadowrun, assuming the only thing you want to play is this one adventure with these 4 characters.
Yeah, release dates are a hell of a thing, aren't they?
They sure are.
Yeah.
So, so what is your overall impression of it? Like, is it worth? That doesn't.
I think if you're a fan of Shadowrun, and you want some cool Shadowrun stuff, and maybe you want to have a jumping off point to get people into Shadowrun without actually doing any kind of work on an adventure, it works out pretty well. I mean, you've got little playbooks you can hand out to people. You've got a ton of dice. The adventure itself is really, really straightforward. So if you're just trying to get your group to play Shadowrun, this box is pretty good. But if you play a lot of tabletops on your own, this box is a poster and some dice.
The poster's an extra thing that I included in the package.
Well, there's a second poster inside.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's the
Birk got me a bomb ass poster from the booth, which is amazing. And there's a second different one inside that includes a map of Seattle as it exists in Shadowrun. That's pretty tight.
It's like a 4x6 poster too. The one in the box is huge.
It's a huge map. I think I don't know what the monetary cost of this box was, but I ultimately it's none of the actual rules or content or what's the value of it. There's some cards in here that serve as quick references, like equipment and things like that, so you don't need to dig through the book, because most people who play Shadowrun, it's grindy as fuck as far as the mechanics are concerned. So having little reminder cards for what all your shit does is pays more dividends than you think it would. Instead of having to make index cards for everybody, you get to hand them these cute little equipment cards, and I think that enhances the value of this. But as far as actual rules and stuff go, that's not the point of the box set, I don't think.
No, it's part of these. So just so you know, it was $25 at the con.
Oh, well, that's cheaper. You get the poster, the dice, and the cards. Honestly,
yeah. So probably $20 on Amazon or whatever. And I really think I don't know if they're the first to do it, but I really remember this starting to be a thing with 5th ed D&D of a box that's $20 to $25, kind of gets you started on the game. Because since then, Edge of the Empire and all the Star Wars editions have had them. There's one for Star Trek Adventures. There's one for BattleTech.
I'm pretty sure this is a
loss.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure this is a long-standing technique. I know old editions of Dungeons and Dragons have these similar low price.
Box. Yeah, there's the red box.
Yeah, the red box.
From a marketing standpoint, if you want to see if your group will play Shadowrun, but you don't want to actually invest in buying a $40, $50, $60 book only to have no one play it, I think the starter kit is a really good idea. Definitely, if you have the option, I would get the starter kit just to see if you even end up playing it. Because if you don't end up playing it, you still get the cool dice in the poster. And if you do end up playing it, you'll actually know if people will continue to play it for a campaign.
Yeah. I think from a marketing standpoint, just to finish that off, the core book is expected out in August. So I don't know if it's supposed to be at Gen Con.
If it's August,
starter packs.
Yeah, if it's August, it's definitely going to be a Gen Con. There's no reason they would put it a week out after Gen Con. Unless there's some sort of incident or something, or some sort of logistical problem, that it'll be a Gen Con, it sounds like. So it sounds like so have you been able to tell any differences between 6th ed and 5th ed Shadowrun in terms of game
rules? We have a lot of things to go over, because they tried to give you a primer to tell you essentially what Shadowrun is all about. So one of the things is they included a new timeline, and if you're familiar from going between versions of Shadowruns, the timeline really changes between editions. And this isn't an exception. It kind of every time there's a new timeline, it sort of rebuilds Shadowrun into all the same sort of key events, but big pieces move around, big players move around, and 6th edition does that again. It really kind of seems like they 5th edition really wanted to not be 4th edition, and 6th edition really doesn't want to be 5th edition.
Yeah, that's fair.
There's a couple new corporations that I don't remember seeing before, listed on because they have the big 10 corporations, and I only know a few of these. So the normal big ones are there: As Technology, Ares, Renraku, that kind of thing. But I feel like Spinrad is new. I don't remember them.
And then there's another one that's in the timeline now as a big merger after some other company got busted. And broke apart.
It's so mostly the ones they detailed are the big Zaibatsu corporations, and then they added a couple new ones.
Okay, so I've never followed Shadowrun between editions enough to know they're changing all these events, but this seems to be this event that happened at this year now happened at this year, or it was done by these people instead of those people.
didn't happen, or it was a smokescreen for something else, or
So
that kind of
they
thing.
just don't care. Like they just like every timeline is its every edition is its own timeline essentially.
It's like a Marvel Crisis on Infinite Shadowruns kind of thing. like all the big players are vaguely the same personality and vaguely the same costume, but like they kind of like shift things around. Corps eat each other. Like if they feel like there's a redundant corp or corpse that people didn't interact with, they sort of get like absorbed into other corporations and sort of like retconned into that. I think that Renraku, no matter what happens, is bulletproof because of the whole arcology disaster.
Just thinking that, yeah, they're not going anywhere.
And everybody loves the arcology disaster. So like, but like, how many times the Matrix has crashed changes between versions.
Yeah, it wasn't for the edition that had introduced wireless things, and like Fifth Ed took that out and said, "Oh, we had to crash the Matrix. No more wireless things."
Yeah, I don't know how many crashes they put in this, but like, yeah, it's they're set on 2 crashes. Wireless stuff is back.
Oh, it is. Okay.
They added a new character, I think, to talk about that, but you'd probably have to wait because like they just mentioned a dude by name. That we don't really know anything about. So I think it's going to be maybe something they expand on when they do like a corpse splat book or something.
So these still sound like relatively superficial changes to like the setting. Like it's still the same themes and kind of like
exactly.
You're still a Shadowrunner chummer, and you know
still the same themes, and that there are none.
Yeah, if there are no themes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some. They made some stylistical so they included like a couple of sample characters, and that's kind of where I want to start. Because like this will let us know a lot more about where they plan to go with the rules and like what they think you should be doing with your characters. And it's fucking terrible. Like one of the things that they've never really done is like update. Okay, so Shadowrun is supposed to be cyberpunk, right? And so the idea is that you're playing essentially like counterculture or like revolutionary culture. And like being cyberpunk, it tends to borrow a lot from like queer themes, queer aesthetic. And Shadowrun is like the marketing business version of that, where like everything is just like made into this like consumable like mainstream version of punk, where it's like it's not really punk. And the character sheets like really reflect that. Like it's 2019. They still have a sex field on the character sheets, which like feels out of place in a game where like body modding is like something that you could do at character creation. So like we've been having this discussion around like Cyberpunk 2077 and things like that. And so like to have Shadowrun like still be an 80s game like like 40 years later, like feels kind of terrible.
Yeah, it's kind of I have noticed this sort of paleo future thing of like Shadowrun looked like this when it first came out, and it can never change. It has to be this static image, and certainly it's not limited to Shadowrun for sure. But yeah, when your whole thing is trying to be transgressive and like against mainstream society, yeah, that does seem a little like I don't know.
Dissonant? Yeah, and if anything, like that's kind of the thing about 6th edition is it's sort of like trying to make itself go back to the roots of Shadowrun. So like it's not trying to evolve or critique or advance Shadowrun at all. It's like it's definitely the we need to make Shadowrun profitable edition. So they're not taking any risks, really.
Okay. Yeah.
At least in this, who knows what's in the core rule book, but like in terms of the characters they provide.
Yeah, this is a starter set, so maybe they don't want to. They're probably they were probably.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that sheets are going to be different, or like character creation is going to be a lot different. Because they include a new field, which like. So Shadowrun has the concept of metahumans, right? So and aside from like humans, you've got elves and dwarves and orcs and that kind of thing. And one of the big like events in Shadowrun history is essentially like Crystalnock, but for like orcs, right? Like the Night of Rage is like when like cops essentially tried to purge cities of metahumans, and like obviously people fought back against that. So like trolls, orcs, those kind of characters are very much coded as people of color.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's sort of integral to the like how Shadowrun works as an aesthetic and how Shadowrun works as like social commentary. Like in, I want to say the 4th edition book, there's a line about from Jack Point, which is like runners talking to each other, where someone says something like, I don't understand why racism is a problem, or like metahuman based racism is a problem because we had a dragon as president. So it really echoes that whole Obama is president, racism is dead sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I go into this to bring up the fact that they added an ethnicity field to the character's personal data. And so the first character they introduce you to is Rude the Troll, whose ethnicity is just white. It just says white. There's no... It doesn't even get into that at all. It's just he's white, but he's like a white troll. So you're taking a character that suffers from a lot of disadvantages that are meant to mimic the experiences of like marginalized people,
Mm-hmm.
and then you take away all the marginalization because that's not fun.
Yep.
I guess.
Huh, yeah, they never had that for 5th edition?
Nope.
Wow.
Yeah, they did. No, this is something new. So if you want to play a troll and you don't want to be black, you can do that now. So like that's super worrying for me, because like if they're gonna make characters that way, like I'm thinking about how like the rule book is gonna go down and the settings are gonna go down, and like the Seattle nightlife books are gonna go down, and I'm like really not looking forward to that.
Yeah, that was the other book. So they had a couple other things for sale at Origins I did not get. But like one of the books was literally just one of these like Seattle nightlife books, and just like a paragraph about each part of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't read enough detail to figure out anything else, but it looked boring. Just like...
All right. I appreciate the capsule review.
That's unfair, but like it didn't really grab me, and I don't know why they have like a world building book out before their core book, I guess. But
yeah, I mean, Bridget, I did see some of you did tweet, essentially live tweet your unboxing of the Shadowrun box.
It's beautiful.
And you pointed out some things. The one thing that I keep thinking back to is sort of the paragraph of text talking about what the point of being a Shadowrunner is, and it says sort of like something along the lines of like, oh, if you're a Shadowrunner, you have to fight, you have to work for these corporations, but if you do really well, you get to be the corporations, which seems antithetical to the game of Shadowrun, because it's always about like the Mr. Johnson, the corporation will always betray you, so you have to like fight, you have to get revenge on them. Like that's the end game of every Shadowrun game I've ever been, is like killing some corporate executive. And now you're trying to be the corporate executive, so that seems a little peculiar. I guess, does the rest of the text in the starter game sort of confirm that, or is that just sort of like we were rushed and we don't know what we were writing?
I don't remember that coming up again.
Yeah,
I think what they're trying to do is they want you. So the theory is that like you're always going to be betrayed, but they're like, in order to survive, like you have to team up with a corporation. So essentially, you become, in order to survive, you need to become an expendable asset to a corporation to fight other corporations. And I get that, like that's the dystopia part of Shadowrun, is like companies run the world, like companies are the most important political entities, like governments are not actors on a global level, and like even as far as like the imperial family of Japan, which like again is like something I feel like they should have approached a little bit more critically, is its own corporation now. The Shiawase Corp. So like I feel like they should have engaged with that, and they decided they really didn't want to. Like it seems like they're focusing on sort of like the pop action violence neon sort of thing, like the aesthetic of Shadowrun, but like without actually digging into anything. It's like you do a job, you get shot at, like somebody gets hurt, and that's all the drama that they really want.
So very much like a kind of a superficial action movie kind of aesthetic almost.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they want you to be playing some kind of like summer blockbuster.
Yeah. I mean, that is like, if you look at the majority, like Shadowrun video games and things that, well, it depends on the game. Certainly the video games, explore more complex themes, especially like the harebrained scheme games from a couple years ago. Yeah. So, in terms of other changes, have you noticed any changes with like game mechanics?
Mechanically, it's way better. You're still going to be rolling a fistful of d6s. Like I want to say that the first like example test they show you, like the player rolls like 12 dice or something like that. So like you're still playing Shadowrun. You still want to buy a million d6s to play this game, but at the same time, like the number of things you have to calculate to do something. Again, this is just like the starter version. I assume there's like way more specialized rules or whatever or optional rules. In the actual game, but like like they want you to roll a bunch of dice and then see if you succeed and like do as little math as possible. But at the same time, there's 5 steps for doing a turn of combat. So
better. The big thing I noticed is that I didn't play much 5th, but I noticed that it felt like they tried to like homogenize the rules. So Shadowrun is kind of famous for having many different modes of play depending on your character, where there's like traditional combat, melee gunfire. There's decking, which is like your hacking. There's rigging, which are like cyber drivers, and then magic. And as far back as like 3rd edition, those all had very, very different rules. Like they were each kind of their own mini game. And this one at least feels like they tried to at least make them more similar.
Everything has its own like stat and like related skills to like make it exactly in line with how the combat rules work.
Yeah, and procedurally they compressed everything down where it can be described in there's many more steps, but roughly 4 steps of like determine your dice pool, roll, determine defense, compare. At least in that regard, it feels a lot simpler, but I still think just intrinsically, it's always going to be hard to combine like rigging, decking, fighting, no matter how similarly they behave mechanically. They still don't solve that problem.
I think that Shadowrun has always meant to be played asynchronously. Like when you go into a place, the first thing you do is you shove your decker into a locker or a bathroom. And they just sit there the entire run because you don't want them getting shot at. You don't want them actually shooting because they probably can't shoot a gun very well. Your face has probably taken a bunch of samurai traits, or they too should be sitting in the bathroom in the, your rigger, if ideally, should not be on site at all. Like they should have automated the getaway van to you, and so really it should be just the muscle on site.
The muscle and the wizard,
and like that works out okay, like if you understand that that's what Shadowrun wants you to do. But I feel like it's more difficult to role play, and like if you're the decker and you already got a bunch of good hacker rolls at the beginning, like you just don't do things the rest of the mission. Your goal is to hide and not die.
It's interesting that hacking real life thing, that earlier Cyberpunk games had the same problem, and Shadowrun decided, we'll keep that instead of solving that game design problem. And then they've
it's
never
a feature.
Yeah, it's a feature at this point. It's what the like again, the Shadowrun came out in the 80s, and then like this is its form, and we will make incremental changes to it, but we're not gonna like do anything too drastic. So you can always recognize it as that same 1980s Shadowrun. At least that's sort of the impression that I've gotten. And 6th Ed seems to be keeping that tradition alive.
The only thing that's simple, easy, straightforward, and probably fun to play is a street samurai, because like magic still sucks. You still have to deal with drain. You still have to like deal with sorcery like tests. Like you still like have to do all this bullshit just to cast your magic, and then like it's just not good. Like magic is always useful as an enemy ability and not really as a player ability, and they didn't change that for this version.
Well, I remember in 3rd Ed, it was more like magic characters are more the utility characters that could, heal you quickly or like get information magically or, things like that. But not like, you still needed the street samurai to actually be the combat monster. Because guns you pull the trigger and they work. They don't kill you if you roll poorly. So,
maybe that it's going to be in the core book too.
Mhm.
They mostly just included combat spells in this particular version because like
Okay.
the adventure is basically entirely themed around combat with like a little bit of like social things. Like I think they definitely want to get you rolling dice and watching numbers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how is the adventure in terms of its setup?
It's okay. I really kind of hate like from like an aesthetic level and from like a metal level, I kind of hate it
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
because they called it Battle Royale, and like it's nice to know that after everyone is finally done making Battle Royale video games, Shadowrun has made a Battle Royale adventure.
Ooh. Oof. Oh, what are the kids into these days? The Fortnite? Yeah, we'll just do a Fortnite thing, says the guy chomping a cigar at the Shadowrun office.
Mhm.
I assume that's exactly how it happened. So is it really you're just like fighting other teams and trying to survive? Or is it?
Yeah, like you
Yep.
kind of end up in a slugging match with a bunch of other gangs and stuff.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you want to showcase a system, combat's usually the way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
It kind of has the same setup as like the Warriors, where like gang
Okay.
territory is sacred, and if
Mhm.
people are off their block, like it starts an impromptu war,
Mhm.
and that's sort of how it goes down.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, basing your first adventure off the newscaster fighting Anchorman is perfectly in line with Shadowrun, never leaving the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So basically it sounds like if you're a Shadowrun fan, this is something worth getting, or if you're on the fence about it, but it's not a must buy for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Definitely feels like style over. Like the art in this is like really, really pretty.
Mhm.
There's some cool. There's like an elf wearing like a leather one piece with like some jeans over it, and that's amazing. And I wonder what her number is, but like the actual like rules themselves, like I really want to see the core book because like this isn't inspiring me. Like really, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think if you're even remotely curious about Shadowrun, it's hard to do better for the price point
Mhm.
if you want to try to get into it. But there's probably games that do it better these days. I think is
Yeah.
my big issue is if you want to do like Cyberpunk Heist,
Mhm.
there's Blades Hacks and other PBTA games that are
Mhm.
probably
Mhm.
better now in 2019.
And you're also not going to get like any replay value out of it. It's just the one scenario, and then there's not really a whole lot else you can do because, you don't.
It would be very hard to do another scenario with what.
Yeah.
It's really just like dipping your toes into Shadowrun. Like really seeing like, can my group play this? Will we like it?
Mhm.
And if that's what you need, like this is a really good product for it. But like if you are thinking about running a campaign and like ahead of time you're gonna want to run a campaign, like, or if you like really want to play serious Cyberpunk, like this is not a product you should purchase.
Okay. Very good review. Thank you. And
I want to talk about the dice real quick.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Thematically, really cool. Usability, fucking terrible.
And why is
there
that?
are so many conflicting symbols and images on this, and like, so
the numbers are like down in the corner.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the thing that matters is 5s, 6s, and 1s. So like 1s are skulls, and 5s and 6s have the Shadowrun like dragon symbol thing on it.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you're gonna do it that way, why wouldn't you have 2, 3s, and 4s just be like blank faces? And so like maybe they wanted people to be able to use them for other things, and it's just they're a mess. Like when you roll them, you have to really look at them to see like what you rolled.
Jeez.
It's not good. Like they're pretty, but it's I can't imagine using them for anything other than the novelty of like my dice are Shadowrun themed.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're trying to cosplay a Shadowrunner, you're like, I've got my dice.
Yeah. Well, then you would want to buy 7 of the Shadowrun beginners packs so that you could have enough dice to really cosplay a Shadowrunner.
Heyo. How many comes in a box?
12.
It's like 12. Yeah. 12.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Some boxes worth sounds about right.
It's not enough for one player.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not enough for one player.
Shadowrun. It uses a lot. All right. Cool. Well, any other bits about the intro box?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. Poster's rad. I think the poster in the inside is cool.
Cool.
Yeah,
I like
the
the art.
design is really cool.
Yeah.
All
The
right.
cover is this like orc with a samurai sword, like jumping at one of those crawler tanks from Ghost in the Shell. And so it's hard to get like a hyper picture than that. Like if you show that to your friends and they're like, I don't want to play this game, then like you can probably just hold off. If you don't think that's rad, you're not gonna like Shadowrun.
Yeah. No. Good point. Good point. Good point. So when we get back, we'll talk about Origins 2019. And we're back. So yeah, we'll be talking about Origins 2019 because Birk and I both went, and we had a very fun time. So really, it was a very board game focused con, but we did have some fun role playing game experiences. In terms of, and of course, as you mentioned earlier, we'll put links to the role playing exchange, Origins wrap up episode, and of course the Mix 6 episode where we talk about Origins. So you can hear if you want to get all the deets on all the board games we played and what they're like. That would be the place. But we didn't really talk about RPGs, and there was actually one board game that we didn't really talk about on there that Birk and I played, and that was the Aliens board game.
Yes.
And that was the only ticketed event I did during. Well, technically, I paid for another event, but I left like 10 minutes afterwards because it was not fun.
It was a war game in the like walk up.
Yeah.
Are you guys playing? Yep. Here's my generics. Okay. Sit around for 10 minutes. Oh, we're still doing enemy, please.
Yeah. It was
Like,
it was a mega battle, and it was like, oh god, this is gonna take forever. And all right, bye. We'll be back. Yeah. But the one board game we did play that we actually did participate in was fun. It was the Aliens board game. I think that was put out by Gale Force 9. That was at their booth.
So.
Yeah. And this is something that has been kickstarted, I believe, or is being kickstarted. Let me just.
What isn't these days?
Yeah, no. Yeah, right? Especially licensed games.
It's on board game. So I don't.
Let's see. Yeah. That's not the right one. That's called Nemesis. Gale Force 9. Here we go. Anyways, it's a one of these story focused sort of board games. It's really much focused on recreating the movie Aliens, and it's called Aliens: Another Glorious Day in the Core. Cooperative survival game. I don't think it was Kickstarter. It just says you could pre-order it. So
yeah, that's weird. The guy kept talking about a Kickstarter, but I could not find any.
Yeah. I can understand why you'd be confused, even if you do work for them, for the company that's making it. Yeah. So in this game, you choose a character from one of the cast of the movie, one of the Marines, or Ripley, and later on you can get Newt. And there are different scenarios you work through progressing through the movies. We did the opening one, which is rescuing Newt. And you get to choose your equipment at the beginning of the game. Yeah.
So everyone plays a Marine from the movie. You pick, do you want to be Hudson or Hicks or Frost?
Yeah. Well, there's also Ripley too.
And Ripley.
Yeah. And I bet that they're one thing I did that they did say.
You picked Vasquez, right?
Yeah. Someone
Somebody
picked
did pick
Vasquez.
Vasquez. I was Gorman.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
There were 5 players, not just us. So there were, I think, someone who did pick Vasquez.
Hudson was the only one that didn't get picked.
Yeah. And it's basic, like, here's how much you get. You get 2 actions per turn. You can move, you can shoot, you can interact with objects or use an item. Pretty basic. And then there are radar blips that spawn on the map during the alien phase, and they move towards players, and when they would get line of sight, you flip over the blip to see how many aliens are on there. And so you have multiple stacks of aliens. And it's pretty straightforward. You move, you talk with the other players to like set up Overwatch. Basically, like when the aliens come, I'll be able to shoot them. Because you do get a defensive fire option, I believe. And the big threat is that your deck of cards, you have one deck called the Endurance deck that has all your special abilities, your items, and also negative events. And to shoot at enemies, you have to like discard cards from that. And certain ability, discard means they're out of the game. They had another term to put them in the other. Do you remember what that other term was?
It was exhausted.
Yeah, exhausted. So if it's exhausted, it goes in the exhausted pile, and then you can eventually reshuffle that and make that the new deck. But if it's discarded, it's out of the game. And when you run entirely out of cards of the Endurance deck, then everyone loses because I guess everyone's out of ammo. So
right,
yeah. I had fun with it. I don't know what I would definitely play it if somebody had it available and it was something to do. But and the minis are definitely high quality.
Yes,
but I wouldn't buy it unless you're a real big Aliens fan, because it's
like it was fine to play. I'm really not into these board games that are just like recreating movies. Like that just not interest me. Like.
Well, honestly, I've actually seen several of these, and I've actually demoed some of them. Like I did demo Big Trouble in Little China, and honestly, I like this one. Is one of the better implementations of a movie because it's less complex. Like Big Trouble from Little China has a massive board that you can flip over, and every player character has special unique quests that they do, and it's just like it's very sprawling and time consuming. This one you could do like a scenario in an hour or 2 hours.
Yeah, I saw the Big Trouble demo and it was definitely unnecessary.
Yeah.
I think just conceptually, like as a player, like just because I like a movie doesn't mean I want to experience it as a board game.
Yeah.
From like a medium standpoint.
Yeah. It would have been more interesting if they had made this so that like it was expanding on it, or like it was a different planet, a different group of characters dealing with aliens.
Aliens has had 40 years of like comic books and world building. You can absolutely, if you want to do a Colonial Marine game, do it not on LV-14s and not just the movie.
But on the other hand, like as a marketing thing, I get like, like people like the movie, and so they'll buy it because it's the movie.
Exactly.
Even if it's even if it sacrifices gameplay quality for it. So at least that's sort of the impression I got for it. So
yeah, I agree. I think the only things that can make it interesting maybe can't be captured in a single game. So first of all, I thought it was easy, and at no point was it never felt tense. So it definitely didn't capture any of that.
Yeah, and it was interesting because the guy who's running it said that like everyone else had failed up until that point, and I just don't see how.
It's just baffling to me. Baffling.
Yeah, the only way that could have happened is if it seemed like the guy was like letting the players not understand that, like he would explain it once, and if they didn't get it, he would just like not explain it to them again. So like they just missed out on things that they could have done. Like that's the only way you could have failed, is if you just didn't take advantage of everything you had access to. Like you didn't control the NPC grunt. You didn't like, we can hack this computer to gain additional information at no cost. We'll have our little NPC grunt do that multiple times. If you had any vaguely optimal strategy, you'd be fine. But like if the guy running the demo didn't explain, like just let players do really dumb things, then I guess that would be the only way you would lose.
Yeah.
So,
and the other thing I was going to say is that, maybe if you play through a campaign where you're your choices and your resources matter. So
Mhm.
if you have to maybe play each mission efficiently,
Yeah, if you
carries over.
Yeah, if a character gets killed and like then you don't get, they're just gone, like then that makes sense. Or they said they did mention like characters don't get killed unless the alien attack is really high, they just get captured. In which case you have to go and rescue them. So that sounds interesting, certainly for a campaign play. But I would hope that they would have like some variant missions, some things not based on the movie, or extrapolated from the movie. Because if you're just recreating the movie, I could just watch the movie.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure they'll sell expansion packs and stuff.
Yeah, they did mention one with Bishop and another with the power loader. So
I think my other main issue with this, and I get this a lot with board games that try to be like narrative like this.
Yeah.
I'd rather just be playing a tabletop RPG. Like, no offense to board games.
Yeah.
But like, I'd rather just be playing like a game where I can like role play and like, talk to other people and have more freedom of action.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I mean, that's fair. I'm certainly the same way. I mean, I've played enough Arkham Horror to never want to play it again. And
yeah, why would I play like Arkham Horror if I can just play
any horror
RPG?
So.
I think this is going to be the kind of game where it's like longevity, like lives or dies by its ability to create fan content for it. Because you're definitely going to burn through scenarios probably faster than the company can put them out.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also like different expectations. I think there are a lot of gamers out there a lot of players who are uncomfortable playing role playing games, or and so they would like the story based board game because that's kind of similar, the sort of the hero quest demographic.
It's like a bridge between hobbies. I totally could get it.
Also, a lot of board game players are like, they play through it once, or like, there's only so many hours in a board game. You play it like 5 or 6 times, you get your 20 hours out of it or whatever, and then you're done with it. You get new board games.
Yeah. Or you never open it, and you just put it on a shelf because you like Alien. You have your shelf full of Alien.
And there are some people who would definitely get, like, if you are the kind of person who likes painting minis and you really like the aliens, like, the xenomorphs and the mermaids and stuff like that, these are high quality minis. So you could definitely paint them. And they would look really cool. Like the power loader, I kind of want to see what the mini looks like. If there's a way to get just the power loader, like Ripley and the power loader, I might want to get that just to paint that myself. Cause
I think also having the final product might also be a little more interesting, because this was like demos. So like you said, the minis were really good, but everything else was printed on like printer paper.
Yeah, that's true. It wasn't.
And
like...
Gale Force 9 did, sorry to bring it up, Star Trek Ascendancy, the board game, which has like beautiful printing on like really nice cardboard and cardstock. So I'm sure the actual final print of the game might offer a little bit of heft to it that kind of just kind of felt cheap at times, but it's a demo, so it's not their fault.
Well, I mean, we did have to pay $2 to play it, but
you're goddamn right. I hate it again.
I could have bought half a water with that money.
Yeah.
Well, I could have gotten 2/3 of a cold brew from the vending machine.
Yeah, they did have cold brew there for $3.
A $3 cold brew, that's a steal.
I mean, it was. It really was. It did sell.
It was like a 6-ounce jar
at a convention. Yeah, that's a steal.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
better than the $4 sodas. So that was fun. But speaking of sci-fi horror, Birk and I both picked up Mothership, the horror role-playing game, along with the supplement Dead Planet, and they did have an adventure for it. Also, coincidentally, I ran a scenario of Mothership last night. It was my own scenario, but I ran it for RPPR Actual Play. I'll have that up at some point in the near future. So I had a lot of fun with it.
Based on the name, is Mothership just like XCOM?
No, it's aliens with the serial numbers.
It's Alien.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Legally
so close.
You could do XCOM with it though.
You could 100% do XCOM in Mothership.
Yeah.
No problem.
Like there are 4. It's very much almost like it's not quite old school Renaissance, but it is kind of that zine aesthetic that a lot of OSR games have. It's actually printed on as a zine. It's like a 40-page little thing, which I really like. But full color.
This is the craft brew version of RPGs, isn't it?
No, the free scenario they're giving out at the convention was literally a trifold pamphlet.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. No, they do. There's a lot of interesting like graphic design choices that they make. It's a very concisely written RPG, to where it has a fairly complex system, but they do it in a very small number of pages. And there's almost no setting information in the main book, so you can graft onto whatever setting you want. So if you want to run any kind of sci-fi horror that is not Eclipse phase level weird technology, like any 80s or 90s, basically most sci-fi horror movies, this is the perfect game to run it in, because you don't, like in Eclipse phase, you have crazy nanotechnology and forking and egos, which makes it a little harder to do alien. Be like, okay, well the alien ate me.
Forking, this is a family show.
Yeah.
This is my Christian Minecraft server, Ross.
So I'll get into it, but Birk, what are your thoughts on the system, since you've read it too?
I've read it, but I have not run it. Okay. I like it. It's right up my alley, where space horror is my like primary aesthetic, my favorite genre of stuff. I think my main issue with it is that while it is really small and rules light, it still has the same problem where I think there's way too many pages dedicated to combat. Like all RPGs have this problem where no matter what, they feel like they have to be over simulate combat for no reason. Like it can't be like shoot each other and that's it. There has to be tons of sub rules and subsystems. Yeah. I think there's a lot of really cool stuff. I think like stuff for like generating ships is really cool. Yeah. Even outside of Mothership, like if you were doing say an Eclipse phase game, you just needed like an adrift ship. You could throw one together very quick. So it's a lot of utilities like that. Yeah. I have not read Dead Planet yet, so I don't have any insight to that. Yeah. Dead Planet also has a derelict ship generator, where you roll a bunch of D6s and make a shape out of it. And then, there's charts you can refer to, like you took this 5 and that represents like a cargo hold. And this 1 represents the command bridge. Oh, that is in Dead Planet. Okay. Yeah. Maybe I have skimmed it, because I do remember that. That's the part of it. Mothership does have systems and ship to ship combat rules and a way to generate the player character's spaceship. So you could have your own, Nostromo or whatever. So, definitely the basic, it seems like what I find interesting now is like so many RPGs that use percentile systems have basically, like Eclipse phase did this like 10 years ago, like percentiles, blackjack rules, highest without going over for opposed checks, doubles are crits. And now like Mothership does it, Delta Green does it, Zweihander does it. I just like seeing all these other people do.
I think it's good that it becomes an industry standard, because like when we were playing Zweihander earlier, like literally I did no prep for it, and so like just assuming and being right that doubles were crits highest without going over was good. Like it's nice. Like it's nice being able to pick up as like a system and like have it be familiar, not have to go, wait, so we crit if our red die is higher than our black die and the market rules a 7. Wait, what?
Yeah. Fair enough. I do like that. Now Mothership does have sort of complex fear rules, sanity rules. There's there's a sanity save and a fear save. Sanity save, the way I read it, is basically for the cosmic horror elements. So you only roll that when, you deal with aliens and weird, sci-fi things. Fear is for basic, like, I'm being shot at. My buddy's been blown up in front of me. The hull's been breached, but both of them cause stress. And also when you fail a body save or when you fail an armor save, you also take stress. So it all goes, so you don't have a separate mental health thing. You just have stress. And starts at 2, and then you just add up. And at any time the GM, and it's left up to the GM can say, make a panic check. And when you make a panic check, you roll 2d10 and compare it to your current stress. And if you roll higher than your stress, then you're fine. And in fact, your stress goes down by 1. But if you roll lower or equal to your current stress, then you have a panic. And then you have to make a roll in the panic table. So, and the panic table is roll 2d10 and add your current stress. And like the low effects on the panic table are actually beneficial, like laser focus or adrenaline. But if you roll like a 30, your character just dies of a heart attack instantly. And so like if you have a stress of 10, theoretically you could you have a decent chance of panicking, and you have a small chance of dying outright from a panic, but more likely you'll just some bad thing will probably, and you have too much stress to have for good things to happen to your character.
Mm-hmm. And then there's lots of cool interaction between like stress and fear and the different classes.
Yeah,
like what your party composition is.
Yeah, so
and personally, I really appreciate that we're starting to call it stress and like not like sanity anymore, because like I think that's one of the problems that horror games has, is they try to like roll mental illness into their like sanity mechanics, and like that feels really bad to play. So having it just be like your character is under a lot of stress and trying to deal with it, I definitely like that reframing a lot more.
I mean, Mothership isn't perfect in that. Like in terms of the panic table, like you can get permanent phobias if you roll poorly enough on a panic event. But I mean, this is it's movie trope things.
Yeah,
I'm looking at Dead Planet, not Mothership. So, but
I also think it's a really good, just in general, like one shot or con game.
You actually could do a campaign game, because they do like your characters can actually level up and gain like more resistance to things.
Totally. I was thinking more from a design standpoint, because it is, it's very focused in purpose. But also like a lot of the mechanics and how you make your character is just encoded into the character sheet, where that's all a player really needs. So you can just hand them a character sheet, and they can make her character and be able to play it just basically from that sheet.
Yeah.
So let's say like I'm a GM who did absolutely no prep, which is definitely not something that I would do. Like how long do you think, like if all I have is the Mothership pamphlet, how long would it take me to get a game up and running?
Assuming you're good at improving the actual story.
Well, of course I am.
Yeah. Then, I mean, the players can make character classes in like 30 minutes or less for the first time, and even less. Because basically, character class is roll your stats. Then it does have 4 stats, so you roll up 60-10 for each one. So the average is like 30. Pick a class, there's 4 classes. Then you take note of how your class deals with stress and panic. Then you pick a starting loadout, and then you pick skills, and you have like between 2 and 4 points to spend. And that's it. So like you make your characters very fast, and then the combat system is basically the same percentile opposed system that's in Delta Green and Eclipse Phase. And
so it's like if you're experienced role players, like the GM can roll up a random ship, and then you can roll up characters in like 10 minutes and just start playing.
Yeah.
You're talking hypothetically if you had experienced players who maybe like had a podcast on playing like 10 years.
Right.
And a GM who did no prep, not the thing.
I mean, I did do prep for the adventure I ran, but that's because I wanted some spooky elements in it.
Sure.
But yeah, there's also like Dead Planet is a pre-built scenario, and you can just use that. It's kind of a sandbox thing where your characters are pulled to the dead planet, and then like they're trapped there, and you have to figure out how to escape. But there's a bunch of different locations they can go to try and figure out how this thing works. But yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I could see doing a mini campaign with it, but like you're not going to do like a super long year-long campaign with this.
Sure.
Characters are actually fairly resistant. They have like on average 60 health or so, and weapons do on average like 2d10 damage. So they can take several hits.
So it kind of feels like stress is the more of a warrior than exactly your health.
Yeah, if you want to really like go after the players, hit them up with a high stress, because if they have a high enough stress, they can just be one shot by like a really bad panic roll. So that's like combat is not the way to kill them, unless they are just being dumb and like attacking things that they shouldn't. But yeah.
I guess that works with the fiction, because presumably you're all professionals.
Yeah, like I mean, the classes are like Teamster, Android, Scientist, and Marine. So you're a professional like space pilot, an android who's been programmed, a scientist, or a military guy, so military person. So yeah, there's Yeah, you're not like even the Teamster does get like actually gets a special ability to reroll panic if they panic, they get to reroll the panic effects table. So that's the interesting thing is there's special cascading like effects where like for example, whenever a scientist fails a sanity save, every friendly player gains a stress because when the scientist like is freaked out by something alien and cosmic horror-y, everyone else gets stressed out by it. Whenever anybody's near an android, everyone has to make fear saves with disadvantage. This does have the advantage disadvantage mechanics that 5th Ed D&D does, but with percentile rolls. And then whenever a Marine panics, every friendly player nearby must make a fear save. So like it's interesting that you can have the Teamster has a beneficial ability, but everyone else has a detrimental ability regarding fear and or sanity.
Well, I mean, if your gun bunny loses their shit in combat, I think that would scare quite a few people.
Yeah, exactly. And so I quite like that. It definitely presented some scenario, like in the actual play that we did, like halfway through the scenario, it's like everyone get away, scientists go look at the weird thing by yourself. Everyone get away, like, because I was oh, everyone gets into stress because you failed your sanity check.
I think this would definitely play to like phase kind of forte because like it turns combat into a role playing counter at some point. And I think definitely getting a chance to have players have more of an interaction with like what their characters think and feel is always a good thing to do, especially in something as boring as combat.
Yeah. But yeah, I really like Mothership for what it is. It does exactly what it says of doing sci-fi horror without. You can just pick it up and run whatever you want within that genre pretty easily. It's also like again this zine, which is like very compact. It's not a big book. It's but yeah,
it was the only thing I bought at Origin.
Yeah,
I could throw it in my backpack.
Yeah, I feel like I'll probably carry this with me to Gen Con. Just whenever I go on a trip, because like, hey, you guys want to play an RPG? Because then I can just have you all make characters quickly and bullshit some space monsters to eat your faces. Or something.
I did have one question about your game. Did you find that? So one problem I generally have with like percentile stuff is that you start off with an almost less than 50-50 chance of doing most things. Do you feel like the players had a hard time succeeding on actions?
No, I often hand waved standard actions if they were within their realm of specialty, like rote actions. Then if somebody assisted them, I often granted them advantage on a roll. And like you add your stat plus to your skill, so you're rolling like your status average of 30, and then you have a plus 10 to a plus 15 on average to whatever. So with advantage, that's not too bad. And if you roll above average on an attribute, then you're rolling that much better. So, and also everyone seemed to be rolling pretty well last night, so it didn't come up that much.
They did, huh?
Yeah. Yep. So, but I mean, they still, got scared and spooked, and so I think everybody had a good time. But yeah, I would definitely be not require too many checks of players, like, because your players are going to average like a 40 or so % on a trained skill. So keep that in mind. But they're also pretty durable. Like again, you can rack up a decent amount of stress before you panic, and you can also take a lot of damage on average before you get killed. So yeah, keep that in mind as well.
Cool.
So let's see. That was the only. I did also pick up Dream Askew, Dream Apart, which I'm quite interested to read next. Since now I finished Mothership, I will give you a more detailed review of that in the next episode of RPPR, hopefully. But I got the hardcover of that because it looked cool and I'd heard good things about it. And so. Bridget, you've actually had some time to read it, so you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I looked through the beta rules a lot. I'm really into the concept of it because if you've played any of the other like Avery Adler games, like it will feel really familiar because it's definitely like a cooperative sort of storytelling idea, like much like Quiet Year and Ribbon Drive. Like it's not like there isn't really a GM. Just usually everybody plays a character, and then everybody also plays like an environmental thing. Like you play the town, or you play the environment, or you play the thing we don't know about. Like those are like actual cards, and you get to pick them up and like have them, and you get to do the actions for that. And then after you do something like do a move, you put it down, or you trade it with somebody, or you get something else. So like it really involves all players as equal partners in storytelling. And like this is my favorite kind of game, is where you're not really concerned necessarily about mechanics or rolling dice or doing combat. Like you're more like, what are my character's motivations? How do I interact with others? Like, what am I scared of? And like how you deal with those emotions when relating to other people. So that's the kind of game I like playing, but also like it's super, super gay. Like this is my favorite part about it. Like character creation is like the most interesting thing that I've ever seen. There's a section on like your gender presentation, and like it doesn't ask you like, are you playing a male? Are you playing a female? Like it gives you like several options or suggestions for each character. One of them is Dagger Daddy, which is the tightest shit I've ever heard in my life. And they kind of go out from there. There's like Razor Fawn or something like that. Like so, like I really appreciate like really being able to dig into like interesting characters and then like just like hang out with your friends and explore stories. Like that's my favorite kind of game. Like I'm super excited for Dream Askew.
Cool. Yeah, I need to get the PDF from I bought that from Indie Press Revolution. I need to email them now that I think about it to get the PDF. But yeah, I will be reading that next now that I've run Mothership. So because I've come to the realization I keep buying all these RPGs and then I don't fully read them. So I should read them all. Starting with
I should read them all, Ross says, looking at a small pile forming behind him.
Small. Yes.
Read my book.
Yeah. But yeah, it was yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But Birk and I also did get to play some RPGs while we were there.
Yep.
Notably Iran Ruin. And
yes.
We will have that playtest on the RPPR Patreon at the beginning of July. And I thought it went well. I've sort of made some additions, some improvements to character generation. We had 5 players, so we had a lot of character generation to go through.
It was a long character generation.
It was like an hour of character generation, but like I think people were getting into their characters pretty quickly because they had that.
I got to play my
yeah. What was it? Hauntology.
I was a struggling hauntology blogger.
Yeah.
So you know.
Yeah,
I mean, it's no veteran free porn artist, but
no. But it did make everybody at the table go like, "What the fuck is hauntology?"
Yep. It was pretty cool. So yeah, I already have more ideas from it. I think I'm going to add a new section to Ruin that is going to be an endless convention hotel or an endless convention convention center. It's just like vast rooms with thousands of chairs laid out and voices.
The back rooms at Gen Con.
Yeah, basically. Just an endless labyrinth of those.
Endless tunnels of Lucas Oil Stadium or whatever.
Oh God, no.
Something like that. But we also got to play Black Death, the Red Markets hack from Ethan Cordry, from Tech Difficulty, or is
yep.
Yeah. So yep. So we talked a little bit about this on the other podcast, but yeah, what did you think?
I think it worked fine. So I think it was I've talked before. Red Markets one shots are always a little weird because you have no consequences.
Yeah,
part of the point of the game. I generally liked Black Death because I think it's one of the few Red Market hacks that made sense because it still involved scarcity and stuff. Like you see a lot of hack discussion that doesn't really match the mechanical point of the system.
Yeah.
I think this one does. I got to play a Icelandic dude who couldn't talk to the rest of the party. That was fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I've seen it for you.
Yeah, exactly. yeah, basically. I thought it was fun. There's some stuff that, it's a play test, so I think it's still evolving.
Yeah,
but it was playable.
Yeah, certainly very. I had a good time playing. I was playing a monk who was bad at melee, and it turned out the way we chose to resolve the scenario was very combat focused. We did have our social negotiator con his way in to open the door to let us in, and then it just had to get to stabbing and shooting. And I wound up using, like, with my 1 point of melee skill, trying to stab a dude repeatedly, and actually getting gassed in a game, which was pretty funny. We'll have that actual play up on RPPR at some point as well. But mechanically, I do like Ethan not making it 100% different from the base system, because, like, sometimes some of these conversions change so much about the original system that, like, it's basically a new game, and it's like, why didn't you just make a new game?
The only difference was really that you just roll damage separately instead of getting it from your attack.
There were two things. One was the melee specialization, which your character could do because you had spear, you had advanced melee weapon fighting techniques.
Right.
But then the other thing was piety and chivalry, which we didn't get to do a whole lot because we weren't often doing much in the way of social stuff. But, like, I had, like, having that as a big societal thing, like, it's your character's perceived piety or chivalry, not your actual inherent thing. It's just like everyone thinks you're really chivalrous, so therefore you get to have this chivalry thing, which is now your new social skill. So you can, or your piety, be like, oh, well, that's a very pious person, so everyone has to respect that. But you have to keep tithing to the church more in order to maintain that piety. So
And I think some of the other big changes we didn't get to use in this scenario, because I know there's gonna be like combat type of stuff. But we didn't get into that in this game. So I think the melee differences were the only really ones I got to play around with.
Yeah, I think I made piety rolls once or twice, but that was about it. But I am eager to see what Ethan writes up for the full piety and chivalry rules. Actually, there was one other game we played that Ethan ran, that storytelling game, What Could Go Wrong?
Yeah. That's an older game.
Yeah, that's like a 200-word RPG. And that's just a little heist storytelling game where you tell, like,
I thought it was about Aaron.
Hey, it's not about.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's quite fun. I'll try and find the link to that if Ethan's posted that somewhere publicly.
I think so.
Yeah. So I'll ask him, but it's a fun little game. We just did an hour before we went to the airport. So
yeah, we were just in a North Market and just played. It's in that genre of, like, party games, but there's not really any rules. It's like the rules are sentences.
Yeah. It's just a storytelling game. You just take turns building on a story, and then roll a dice to see if it's a good event or a bad event, that kind of thing. So I quite liked it. But yeah, overall, I really like Origins. Origins is certainly worth going to if you're just interested in RPGs, because there's still a lot of RPGs there. You can kind of ignore all the board game stuff. And if you want to do True Dungeon, it's like $20 cheaper there and a lot easier to get in than at fucking Gen Con.
I think that's like a good general motto. Origins, it's a bunch cheaper than Gen Con. And easier to get in.
It's only 20,000 people. It's not 70,000 people. So it's crowded. There's a lot of people, but it's not like overwhelming.
I mean, whenever we wanted to record anything, we could just walk up to the press room.
Big shout out to the Origins press room office. Thank you for letting us record there. Thank you for having that up there in the first place. That was very cool.
As a personal preference thing, like, whenever con games happen, like, it's very difficult for me to listen to them. The background noises is very distracting.
It is. It is kind of the eternal struggle of con games. You can get access to people who aren't there, who are hard to get together to play a game with, but you have to do it when there's fucking everyone around you. There's thousands of people around you, so it's a bit annoying. At
Yeah,
times.
at least at Gen Con, you could dip back to a hotel or something.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah,
I'm sure logistically it will always work out this way, but the more games you can record in a hotel room, the better.
Yeah.
Agreed. Certainly, if you can get like a conference room or whatever, too, like some place where it is quiet, the better off you are. Yeah. So, that kind of wraps up Origins 2019. Again, if you want to hear about the board games, go to the other podcasts, because no need to repeat what they've talked in their excellent
Not board game public radio.
Well, we have nothing against board games. There's no need to repeat.
I know, Ross.
Okay. But before we go, Bridget, do you have anything you'd like to talk about or plug?
Every single time I plug Cry, if you want to follow at Cry Novel on Twitter, you can get updates to our visual novel. It's basically what if Supernatural was interesting, what if Buffy had good writers, like that kind of thing. I say this every time that we're really close to releasing the first episode, but I legit mean it. Like, I've seen about half of the first episode actually put into the engine, and I got to play through it and see it with all the music we got commissioned and all the wonderful art that Nana did. I'm really, really excited. So, like, by the time you're hearing this, I'm sure you can follow our Twitter, and it will be a few days from now we will be able to get it out. Hopefully. So please look forward to it.
Yeah.
Do it.
I'm looking forward to it as well. As obviously when it comes out, we'll definitely be talking about it on RPPR. Probably have a game designers workshop so we can talk to you and Faye about the process of writing a visual novel, because that sounds quite interesting. And so
I can show it to you in visual format. It's that meme where it's like lay down, try not to cry a whole lot.
Oh no. So I think that's about it for RPPR for this episode. We of course check out the RPPR Patreon for more bonus podcasts, again, questing for answers, online games, after hours, and a lot more. We're doing also RPPR Illustrated with best of RPPR cast members. We've already done some of the best moments of Aaron in games, and very soon we'll have the best of Tom in various games. And who will be next? Who knows?
For just a couple bucks a month donating to the RPPR Patreon, you get access to tons and tons and tons of content. Mm-hmm. So if like the regular releases to the free site are not doing it for you, like definitely consider pledging to the Patreon. Because I think even the lower levels, you get access to a lot of content. Mm-hmm. And if you think, hey, maybe I would like to play a tabletop role-playing game, but it's so hard to get a group together. Like, I really recommend playing in the patron games. It's $10, the $10 a month level. Yep. I want to say. Mm-hmm. We get 4 GMs a month to try and run 4 games a month. So you get Ross sometimes, you get Aaron sometimes, you get me, and we run really, really good run shots. I promise you'll have a good time.
Thanks. All right. Well, that's it for RPPR episode 167. We'll talk to you all next time. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye.